day, Junior Tuckies, and to anybody else who might be tuning in, welcome to this grade 10 English lesson. Today we are going to be taking a look at the characteristics of a novel. Specifically, we are going to be talking about the story and how the character develops. So, when we look at a novel, I want you to think of what you'd find if you went into a library. You would find quite long stories with chapters, with a definite beginning, middle, and end. Okay, so I want you to think of a novel as something that has not only development in terms of the plot, but also the characters. You meet the characters and you get to know them and you go through the trials and tribulations of their life. They develop, okay, and some characters don't develop, so we're going to unpack that further in this lesson. All right, so a novel is a book and it follows a narrative structure with a focus on the character and the action. Okay, when looking at a novel, it may seem like it's a lot of pages, but at the end of the day, when you really pick up a novel and it's enjoyable, you will become immersed in the story and you can't wait for the next novel to be released. You know, you are really invested in the story, in the characters, and you wait with anticipation. If you ever find yourself by a local library, or if someone gives you a novel and they say that they think it's really good, I strongly encourage you to read it. There are so many amazing novels out there, and they go into so much more detail when it comes to characters and when it comes to the structure, the build-up of anticipation and all that sort of thing that we will be exploring today. It's far more detailed and immersive. So, some novels that I am discussing are Wilbur Smith, very famous, extremely famous South African writer. Grew up in Pietermaritzburg, went to Michael House. When the Lion Feeds, in an unforgiving land, a cast fortune and danger await. Ellipsis. Too incredible. Okay, there's also Cry, The Beloved Country by Alan Paton, the greatest novel to emerge out of the tragedy of South Africa. Powerful, powerful words, and one of the best novels of our time by the New Republic. So that's, if you get your hands on that novel, just read it from start to finish and enjoy. Another one that I wanted to talk to you about is, of course, Harry Potter. When it comes to a novel that's been transformed into multiple successful films, it's now important to discuss the font over here. Many movies are attempts from a film crew to create the magic of novels. I will be honest, when you have read the novel, when you have read the book and followed the story, it's difficult to watch the film and to think that the film is as good as the novel. But I do take my hat off to some producers and some directors for really doing a great job. I'm just pointing out The Hobbit, one of the sets of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, in New Zealand. But J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, he actually was inspired by our Midlands in KwaZulu-Natal. So, yeah. Let's see. I make lots of references to graphic novels. That is because that is also a very successful movie industry as well. That was inspired by novels, their structure in terms of characters and in terms of plot. Let us talk about character development. Now, novels follow a narrative structure. They are telling a story, and there is a strong focus on the character and the actions thereof. Okay, so we see everything through the eyes of the characters and we bond with the characters, right? One of the main reasons why people keep reading novels and enjoying them is because they like and can relate to at least one of the characters. A novel allows the reader to fully engage and understand the depths of a character. I'm just paying homage to a few lovely characters. Of course, Sherlock and Watson. They've been written about, plays have been made about them, movies, series, you name it. Characters that we know and love. Puleng Kumalo, okay. Blood and Water. Am I right? Okay. I don't think there's a novel, but I know that she is a character that is the protagonist. We'll talk about it. And yes, a very lovable character who, we follow along with. Because you get to know the characters in such detail, you know the depths of the characters, okay? You know their innermost secrets and thoughts and all that sort of thing as they develop with the plot. So two types of major characters that we should always keep our eye on are the protagonist. So we need to ask, who is the protagonist in this narrative? And that's who's the hero. They often have a flaw, but they're still our hero. And often the main character of a novel, they change over time. Okay, and the audience is meant to form an understanding of the protagonist and enjoy following the developments of their story. Okay, some protagonists include James Bond, and of course, Batman. He is flawed, he's very dark and kind of shame. But yeah, he's fighting for the good of humankind. So there's that. And then, of course, let's move over to the right and talk about the antagonist. The antagonist is the one who stands in the protagonist's way in some kind. Okay, they are a barrier. Anti. Okay, the antagonist. Anti kind of progress. All right, they are often considered the villain. Okay, but sometimes the antagonist is lovable and harmless. They're just in the way of the protagonist, if that makes sense. But yes, if there's a villain, if there's a clear villain, then you can safely assume that they are the antagonist. Some antagonists include the Joker, been performed by many, many actors. And yes, there's other villains that you can see there. I'm not a huge fan of Marvel or whatever. Oh no, what if that's wrong too? Alrighty, let's discuss the difference between flat and round characters. Now, in order to develop this theme a bit more, we are going to be using a lot of references to Disney's The Lion King that came out in 1994, an absolute classic. And it's got some brilliant flat and very round characters. So I'm on the left-hand side here, guys. A round character is complicated and lifelike. There are many layers to his character, just like there are layers to all of us. There is evidence of change or growth from the character. Okay, so some words to take note of, guys, are evidence of change and growth. Okay, they are quite well rounded. They don't just stand still and are stagnant. They really do grow a lot as people or animals, and there are many layers to them. Okay, so round characters, you really get to see a lot of sides to them, and you get to dive into it a bit more, compared to flat characters. Okay, so flat characters, now I'm on the right, guys. A flat character is there to support, sorry, apologies about that typo, that should be 2 words, to support or guide the other characters. Their personality is sort of fixed in place and they do not grow or change. The character is flat because the personality is often not explored in depth. It is shallow. They are there for a purpose, but in terms of the character itself, we don't know much apart from what they present to you on the first day. There's no growth or change. A flat character often plays minor roles. Okay, so let us look at the hyenas just underneath the text box. This is a reference to the hyenas in The Lion King, who are always kind of villainous and in the background, and they don't change in terms of their personality, their job is to be scary and to be intimidating to Simba and to be an obstacle. But in terms of like their in-depth emotions and perhaps something new that they learn, like we don't delve that deep into the topic. I hope that makes sense. Interestingly enough, another flat character is Mufasa, okay? Because the big lion in this picture, he starts off as a regal king and his personality remains the same throughout the film. Okay, there's not a lot of growth and like change in his personality. He's always wonderful. He's always this brilliant king. Mufasa, whoo. Okay, Mufasa's perspectives and viewpoints do not change, and so you could argue that he is a flat character. His job is to support and to guide the protagonist. Okay, so compare the hyenas and Mufasa to Simba. He starts off as a newborn baby, okay, and he grows up into this brilliant king without giving too much away. Oh, I might have just given everything away. He grows throughout the film. Simba also changes his perspectives and viewpoints often. Okay, he is a round character. We get to know a lot of elements of his personality because we get to see him grow up and go through his trials and tribulations. So he is definitely the protagonist, okay, and he is most definitely a very round character. So that is the difference between flat and round characters essentially. Let's play a game called Who Do You Think is a Flat Character and Who is Round? Okay, contestant number 1 seems to be like an awfully healthy looking panda, okay, who's very fierce and learning Kung Fu. And it says in his character description that he is a dedicated but clumsy panda who works hard to become a master of Kung Fu. Through this, he has to overcome his insecurities and grow as an athlete. I'm seeing a lot of growth. I'm seeing a lot of layers here. I'm not sure if you're responding in the same way, but I am leaning towards round. Okay. On the right-hand side, we see a tortoise who has seen the sun for quite some time. Anyway, he says, yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That is why it is called the present. That's so helpful. And his character description says that he is a helpful old tortoise who offers some good advice to the panda to stop him from giving up. He then disappears, poof, literally into the wind. Okay. He's there, he's present to support the protagonist, but in terms of layers to his character, we don't know a lot, apart from that he's old and quite wise, I'd say. So he is probably more of a flat character. I hope that you see what I am seeing, and then if you do, I think that you've got a good grip on the concept. So as we've mentioned before, novels follow a narrative structure, okay? They follow a storyline to a certain extent with a focus on the character and, of course, the action. Now, what's important to note here, guys, is that they follow a specific structure in each story, okay? And there's certain themes and certain characteristics that you need to know and look out for, and you need to know the definition of the following words. So here we sort of see the structure in a very basic way. Okay, it's going uphill like so. We reach some sort of pinnacle moment, okay, and then it falls down, sort of like a hill or a volcano or a mountain. It's going down, 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 to some sort of resolution. Okay, so the word exposition basically means introduction. Okay, you're exposed to the characters, to the plot, to the setting. Okay, things are starting to happen. The plot is thickening. Okay, there's a rising action. There's a rising in suspense. There's a climax in the sense that this is a deciding moment. So everything in the plot and everything in the character's life has been building up to a decisive moment in the storyline, and everything that follows this moment is because of this decision, probably made from the protagonist, and then there's probably a sort of reaction from the antagonist. Okay, so climax, yes, pinnacle point in the structure. Then, maybe apologies are made, maybe, this climax led to a resolution, so everything's going back to normal. We sort of get all the answers, because sometimes we have questions as the novel develops, so it's just kind of tying up all those loose ends, okay, about characters and the plot and setting and the future. And then, guys, we kind of reach a resolution. We kind of reach an acceptable outcome for the story, and we close the book. And sometimes it's very difficult to close the book and to accept the resolution. You just want another book because you are so in love with the storyline and the plot. But yes, hopefully it gives you a very happy resolution at the end of your story. You can pause the video here to take official notes of what I just said. Okay, pay special focus to, exposition, start of the novel, okay? You're exposed, exposition, okay? You're introduced, it is an introduction, okay, to things that obviously the author, the person who's writing this novel, thinks is important to the storyline. Okay, let's move on to the climax. The peak of the action, okay, the protagonist makes a huge decision or does something remarkable, something ingenious even. Okay, all the rising action is building up to this moment, and then the moment happens, it's the top of the mountain, if you will. Okay, and then the novel is slowly coming to a conclusion. Right, I'm just at the bottom, the resolution. This is the conclusion of the novel. All the themes and elements of the novel are hopefully finalized to a large extent, and the story ends. Okay, I just drew a little stick man at the top of the mountain to kind of help you picture. You climb up the mountain, you see the view, and then you climb down. Okay, exposition, climax, resolution, all whilst the rising action and falling action is happening in the background. Right, so the next exercise is about cliffhangers, and I want you to take a look at these images, and I want you to tell me what you think represents a cliffhanger. Hopefully you are looking at the more dramatic cliff image, which is the left-hand side. Okay, the person is walking, 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 and then suddenly it just goes straight down. That is basically the definition of a cliff. Compare it to the picture on the right-hand side. Okay, these are more meadows, more hills. It kind of has a light start to it, okay, and then a kind of a steady gradient to a conclusion. Maybe less action in the story, okay, compared to something that's putting you on like the knife's edge, so to speak, putting you in these cliffhanger positions. That's probably more suspenseful as a novel, as a story. A cliffhanger is an excellent way to get the audience to want to read more of the story. It's when the novel ends abruptly, leaving more questions than answers. Take a look at this cliffhanger that's representing the structure of a novel, guys. Okay, none of these questions are being answered at this point, like it should be doing, sort of with that slower sort of structure as we've seen before. A cliffhanger is when the peak of the action is happening and the novel suddenly ends. There is often something very dramatic which has just happened. For example, a man who is the enemy of the main character turns around and says, "I am your father." Thank you, Star Wars, for that amazing moment. Perhaps the protagonist has found a way to save humankind, or a huge revelation has taken place, and then boom, the novel simply ends and it leaves you with a need to know what happens next. Okay, that is a cliffhanger. Look at how steep this cliff is. Okay, that's what's said here. And the thing is, you don't get a resolution, you have more questions than answers. Series are very good at this. They'll leave you on a cliffhanger so that you watch the next episode, right? They'll do something dramatic and then you want to see more. Thank you so much for staying tuned. I hope that this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.